it's not reading for the faint-hearted.
Right.
There is a lot of judgment going on, but there is just enough hope to keep you going.
Right. Right.
Welcome to Cross Connections, Season 2, Cover to Cover, as we read along with you each week and discuss the Bible from Genesis to Revelation. Cover to Cover is hosted by
Rick Morley, Elliot Van Hoy,
and Natalie Hill. Join us as we discover how these stories connect us to God, to our inner selves, and to one another in a world that tries so hard to disconnect us. Welcome back, one and all. This is episode 40 of Cross Connections Season 2, Cover to Cover.
very special episode.
This is, it's pretty impressive that we've made it to episode 40 here.
It is.
Yeah.
Quite an accomplishment.
What the heck? Rick?
And
What's wrong with your voice?
Oh no. And we're going to launch into wisdom literature. But before we do that, Rick's voice is a little strange today, don't we think?
It's a little off, a little higher than normal.
Exactly. No. Rick
I'll
is
work on my low notes.
Rick is on vacation this week. So Elliot and I are here today with our special guest, the Reverend Tanya Regli. Tanya is one of our associate rectors here at St. David's, our newest associate rector here at St. David's. And she's going to talk with us about Isaiah. She's pretty well versed in Isaiah right now. And we'll get into that in a minute. So Tanya, tell us a little bit about yourself. Introduce yourselves to our listeners.
Well, I've been here, I guess, around 9 months now. I was at Grace Epiphany Church in Mount Airy before this as a priest in charge. I started there when I was a transitional deacon, so I'm a pretty new priest as well. I haven't even been a priest for a year yet.
Wow.
Coming up in January.
Wow.
She's just a baby priest.
I'm a baby priest.
But no baby. She's got quite the life experience behind her.
So I come from over 30 years of nonprofit management, mostly in grassroots organizations. I'm originally from Colombia and Venezuela, came to the U.S. for college, met a guy from Philly.
As the story goes.
We live in his childhood home in Wyncote, Pennsylvania.
Wow, stud.
And we've been married for 32 years. We just celebrated.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. So we have 2 grown children. I always feel funny calling them children. And so really glad to be here at St. David's and to be with you both talking about Isaiah.
Yeah.
Exciting stuff. And I hear rumors that you might be here at St. David's a resident expert on Isaiah based on things you've done here.
Only
You have a
because we spent the last, 4 months dwelling with Isaiah, just the first section, actually. Poor women in the Bible study. When we started, so I started with the women's Bible study without doing a lot of prep because I had just started, and we've been meeting on Mondays at 10:30 if any women out there want to join us. And it's been a wonderful, wonderful way to get to know people and dwell with others and wrestle with Scripture.
Yeah.
And the fact is that I feel like we have to live an infinite time to really get our heads around Scripture, and Isaiah is no exception. But Isaiah is pretty phenomenal. It's quoted all the time.
Yep.
Some of the pointers I gave as we were going through was, when you hear something you've heard before, let's
Right.
talk about it.
Right.
Oh my goodness, no wonder you spent so much time. You must have stopped constantly. We are probably only going to do this episode and next week and maybe like a half an episode. You'll probably get about 2.5 episodes on Isaiah from us.
Yeah.
But you said you spent like 4 months in Isaiah.
Well,
just the
once a
beginning
week
of
for an
Isaiah.
hour. Yeah, just
Well, yeah. I mean, our episode's only going to be about an hour. So, all right. So before we get too far into Isaiah, Ellie, do you want to do your? I know you have like a speed run of
Spiel?
questions you like to give our guests, or do you want to hit those at the end?
Yeah, let's make people wait, and get to all the exciting content of the Bible.
I know, like we are so ready to jump right in.
No, I have the questions ready for Tanya, as we do for all of our guests, but why don't we save them? And maybe we could. This is a big transition here. We were just in the wisdom literature
Yep.
for a while.
Finished the wisdom, and now we're in the prophetic texts.
Yep. And Isaiah is the one that kicks us off in our scriptures. So maybe we could just say a little bit to remind people. We've encountered prophets in places like Samuel, right? Samuel was a prophet. We've encountered prophets and kings like Elijah. But maybe, Tanya, you just want to say a little bit about what a prophet is, what a prophet does, what makes this section of the Bible unique. It's a big question.
I know, yeah.
I'm not going to fully answer it, of course, but a lot of people think sometimes, prophet is like
fortune
can tell
teller.
the future
Yeah.
or something like that. And really, a prophet is not merely perhaps, but God is speaking through that person.
Mm-hmm.
And at that period of time, it wasn't uncommon for someone in leadership, a king, to have a prophet advising them,
Right.
and helping guide them and sharing what God was telling them.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't always things they wanted to hear,
Right.
which is important.
Yeah.
That it wasn't just an advisor sitting there going, do this so you can feel better.
Mm-hmm.
It was really challenging them to stick to their faith.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And we've seen that. I'm sure our listeners will remember, though it feels like ages ago after journeying through the wisdom literature, that as the kings arise in Israel, like you said, there are these prophets. And so this is kind of a social, political, religious role all wrapped up into one, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And as we remember from those books, a lot of the kings didn't do a very great job. And so the prophets were probably quite busy letting them know about that, right?
Unfortunately, yes. And not just the king, but also the nation,
Right.
its people.
Yep.
And so that becomes a very important role. Also a very dangerous role.
Right.
And Isaiah is one of three major prophets. So there's Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel. And then there's a whole bunch of minor prophets. Isaiah is the first of the major, but there are a lot of minor prophets, such as Amos,
Right.
who are much older.
Right. So maybe just an interesting note about, a lot of times we'll talk about where these books take place in our Bible in terms of how they're ordered. And readers and listeners might remember that oftentimes our Christian Bibles are organized a little differently than Jewish Bibles. And so it might just be worth mentioning that in the Jewish Bible, a lot of the prophets come after the Torah. Another interesting note is that all of what we call the minor prophets are often called in the Jewish tradition the Book of the 12, and they're all in one book, which is very fascinating. Just because these books are so short, they would be written on one scroll. And so that one scroll of all of these minor prophets would be considered like one book. What's interesting is in the Christian canon, the prophets get placed after what we call the historical writings, things like Kings and Chronicles. And part of the reason for that was in the Christian Bible, the prophets are viewed as the precursor to Jesus. So we like to have them right before the Gospels. Whereas in the Jewish Bible, they really view the prophets as kind of affirming and extending the Torah, which is why they like to have it right after the Torah. So just an interesting note about placement in terms of each Bible.
Yeah, I was reading these, I was thinking, why don't we just have the prophets next to where they were prophesying?
Totally.
Like, why don't we have the book of Isaiah right up against 2 Kings?
Totally.
Because if you want to go back, our episode on 2 Kings was back April 9th this year.
It's a while ago.
So it's been a while. So if you want to go back to when we first ran into the first prophets, that's in Samuel, which is at the very end of March. And so I was thinking, why don't we just have Isaiah right up against 2 Kings?
Totally.
Because then it's a little easier to say, these are the king. We're just reading about what was going on and then what this prophet is speaking into. It would be really helpful that way. And what's nice about study Bibles is it'll point you back those directions. But just always kind of keep that in the back of your head as
Right.
as we're going through these prophets, that they're speaking into a moment that we've already read about in our Bibles. So there's a little bit of going back and touching on that.
Which is really the perfect transition to the context of this book, Isaiah. Like you already mentioned, Natalie, this is a prophet that shows up in those Kings and Chronicles books, but he doesn't play a major role there. And so this is a prophet of the southern kingdom, right? Judah. And remember, again, historical back, there's two kingdoms, the northern kingdom of Israel. And in Isaiah, it's often called Ephraim, which is just one of the tribes of the northern kingdom.
And remember that the capital of Ephraim is Samaria, from which we get the Samaritans down the road.
Right.
So just keep that in your
Because that's who
thinking
ends
brain.
up there when that kingdom falls.
Yeah.
Too much history, too much.
There's just make sure you have those things in your brain. when
We
we're
really need like a chart with lines between it, you know? But Tanya, maybe you want to say a little bit about just the context of this book and the title and when it was written, just so readers have a sense of this is kind of what's going on here.
And why is Elijah not a major prophet? Anyway,
Good point.
I mean, we hear a lot more about Elijah's story. In
You
the
do,
other, but
right.
yeah.
We do.
And he was a prophet to the northern kingdom,
Right.
which
And-
is probably part of it. Why? Because that one
And
fell.
I think it was also written in about a very different context.
Right.
That's
Right.
true.
And I think that's the important thing about our major and minor prophets is that they're written after things have already happened, looking backwards. So I think that's probably why they're together in terms of their importance of lessons learned.
Right.
So are you saying that Isaiah didn't write down what he had to say when he said it?
No, he didn't.
So what
He
is
said
this
it.
text?
This text was written during the Babylonian exile. And there's some pretty hair-turning, whatever,
Hair-raising?
hair-raising.
Yeah, maybe.
I am not a native English speaker. I always get those kinds of things wrong.
That's fine. That's fine.
There's some pretty hair-raising stories or words that Isaiah is giving and
Yeah.
warning them of. And they don't change. They don't stop doing what they're doing. They don't stop oppressing the poor.
Right.
And Isaiah is really speaking to the elite, to those who are controlling the country. And that's a theme we'll talk about a little more. But because the things Isaiah says will come to pass, do come to pass, they write it down while they're in exile. And it's actually an extraordinary story that both Rick and I tend to pull into a lot in our sermons. And because there's this unique group of people in exile with extremely literate people, they're able to then take what they remember, because all of this is passed on, and you'll see this in the way Isaiah is written, to be chanted or sung, right? So people are remembering. It's like poetry.
Yeah.
And so they start to write it down. But they are in great pain because there has been a lot of loss.
Right.
So that's the really powerful reason for this huge book to
Right.
exist.
And you said that something about sections.
Yes, there are 3 sections. We'll probably only get through the first. And the first one was written in the 8th century.
So before the Babylonian exile,
Yes.
as the northern kingdom is probably beginning to fall to Assyria.
And then the other 2 sections are written in the 6th century.
Yeah, that's a pretty big time jump.
Huge time jump.
Yeah.
So there's a beginning, and then they build on it.
I'm sure you have it in front of you. I wouldn't expect you maybe to know off the top of your head, but the chapter breakdowns for those 3 sections?
Sure. The first section is Isaiah 1 to 39. And most of our Bibles, especially study Bibles, make this pretty clear. Then you have Isaiah 40 to 55, which was mid-6th century BCE, and Isaiah 56 to 66 in the late 6th century BCE.
Right.
Yeah, there's a lot of very helpful breakdowns of those sections. But we only got through, in the women's Bible study, the first section.
But you made it all the way through 39?
We did.
Oh, all right.
We did.
That's about our readers we've probably read through 33, 35 at this point. So that's around about where our readers are going to be
starting to
listening
get
into
there.
this today, close to the end of that section. So this is all Isaiah's prophecy regarding the fall of the northern kingdom then? Is that what this is all speaking into? Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes.
Yeah, the first section.
This first section.
The first
1 to
section.
39.
1 to 39. So we're gonna just we can mention that there's that other section, but let's kind of focus in, I think, on this first section today.
And just to say how we know there's a shift is that when we get to Isaiah 40, like Tanya talked about, there is a clear shift, and that chapter begins, "Comfort, O comfort my people, says your God. You've served your term, your penalty's been paid." And the context here is when, if you remember from some of our history lessons in previous podcasts, Persia defeats the Babylonians. We get King Cyrus, and then King Cyrus lets the Jews return to Jerusalem. And so this is what begins to shift at Isaiah 40. So we know, given what's being said, it's coming later when this would have happened in the 500s, like Tanya said, the mid-6th century. So yeah, different historical context in these first 39 chapters, which we'll hone in on today.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
But, Isaiah is covering such a large span of time and a lot of different kings.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons it's so large.
Right.
I mean, the kings did, some of them did not have the longest of reigns.
No.
There was a lot of, I remember those episodes being a lot of political intrigue, lots of warring between the two kingdoms, lots of who's doing the right things, who's doing the wrong things, and who defeated who today.
So should we say maybe a little bit more about who Isaiah was, how he appears in these kind of first sections of the book, what he has to say, what is the mission God gives him? Lots of things paths we could follow in terms of these many chapters.
Well, one of the things that I think is most important about what Isaiah says constantly, and that we pull from a lot, and the New Testament pulls from, is two words, and that would be mishpat, which means justice in Hebrew, and tzedaqah, which means righteousness. And righteousness is a very important word in Hebrew, so much so that there's multiple words for it that we don't really have in English. And our modern interpretation of those two words together is social justice. So Isaiah talks a lot about social justice, about not just following the rules that you guys just read a lot about, I think, in Leviticus and other books, but actually putting the faith in action.
Right.
So we have, it's about behavior.
Right. Ethics. And actually he ties a lot to one of my favorite minor prophets, Amos, who also is constantly bringing this up and challenging those who are in power to take care of the marginalized. Right.
Maybe this is why I'm in charge of outreach at a church, but to the children, the widows, the orphans, the poor, the stranger.
Yeah.
The oppressed. The word oppressed came up a few times.
And the vulnerable.
Yeah, and I think, what I find so interesting about this, Tanya, and I'm glad you highlight this, is we've seen this in previous books, right? And in the Torah, that as bad of a rap as Leviticus gets sometimes, this is the first book that talks about loving your neighbor, right? And there's all of these Levitical laws about doing certain things with your field so that you have leftover food for the widow, the orphan, and the poor. Right. But I think what I hear you hitting on a little bit is there does seem to be a shift nonetheless in the prophets. And Amos is a good example, and we see it here in Isaiah of you have focused too much on these rituals and regulations, and you have forgotten the widow, the orphan, the poor. And not only have you forgotten them, you've mistreated them. I think we all know that Amos 5 passage, right, that MLK Jr. uses. A lot of people maybe don't realize you find that very similar language right at the beginning of Isaiah as well, right? So I'm even looking now at the beginning of my chapter 1 on Isaiah. And this is chapter 1, verse 11. What to me is the multitude of your sacrifices, says the Lord. I've had enough of burnt offerings of rams and the fat of fed beasts. I do not delight in the blood of bulls or of lambs or of goats. So that's a little bit of a shift from kind of what we have seen in many passages in the Torah. And then when you get to verse around 15 and 16 of that same chapter, wash yourselves, make yourselves clean, remove the evil of your doings, cease to do evil, learn to do good, seek, here's a word you just mentioned, Tanya, seek justice, rescue the oppressed, defend the orphan, plead for the widow. So really exactly what you're hitting on, that there's this concern for the social justice of the community, the needs of the community, the people that are being marginalized and oppressed.
Right.
Yeah, that's powerful.
Yeah. And it's not reading for the faint-hearted.
Right.
There is a lot of judgment going on, but there is just enough hope to keep you going.
Right.
Yeah, it keeps fluctuating in its poetic nature. It does many of those you get some of those woe to you sorts of phrases in there, but then you also go, and then the remnant, and they will be wonderful, and all these great things. And so there's always that balance of, this is how it's going to go. I'm the oracle of doom. But also, here's where, those who have done the right things and who have been followed God's way. What I think is also really interesting, and this came up actually, I was having a conversation with my family about the theology of the Deuteronomistic historian.
Yes.
Say that 5 times.
How many
Why
times
is this word coming back?
this podcast, it is, we should just rename it. It's no longer read the Bible from cover to cover. It's now why the Deuteronomistic historian is the most important historian in the Old Testament. But we just keep coming back to the kind of the theology of that.
Right.
The do this and things will be good, and don't do this and the northern kingdom will fall. Oh, and so will the southern kingdom, and so will Babylon, and so will
Right. Yeah. There's that belief, and it still is here, right, Tanya, that God uses the nations to make judgment.
So that was the next thing.
You were going to talk about this a little bit, about what is the role kind of the nations and
so
God.
There is a lot of essentially saying the nations are going to come and they're going to take over, and you shouldn't be aligning yourself with another nation. And this happens along with basically, they're resisting one nation, and then the northern kingdom starts trying to ally itself with another one, right? And there's an oracle basically saying, don't do this. This is going to lead to your demise. And then also just really a judgment against the nations. And yet, throughout Isaiah, you see also that God is working in calling other nations. One of my favorite verses, arise, shine out, for your light has come. The glory of God, the glory of Yahweh is coming to you. Right. So the idea, we have within Isaiah conversation within the Israelite people, but then you also have this conversation with the world, with all people and all nations. And I think that's very important, that God isn't just working here,
right,
in Israel. God is working everywhere.
Yeah, and that is a bit of a development from the Deuteronomistic historian, which really views the nations only as this force of kind of retribution, right?
Right.
And then allied with that is still a judgment on the nations. But I think, to your point, Tanya, a verse that I come to, it's right at the beginning of Isaiah, and it's a theme that then continues throughout, as Tanya pointed out, is Isaiah 2. So Isaiah 2, one of the things you see throughout the prophets is, as this developing theme, is this idea of the day of the Lord, right? This day when things will be made right, as Tanya was talking about, when justice and righteousness will prosper. And there's a hope that Jerusalem and the Davidic line will be at the heart of this. Mm-hmm. But I think what is a development is that, as Tanya pointed out, the nations are very much invited into that as well.
Absolutely.
And so in chapter 2, for example, that's what's being discussed. So you take verse 2, right? In days to come, right? The day of the Lord. The mountain of the Lord's house shall be established at the highest of the mountains and shall be raised above the hills. All the nations shall stream to it.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. And that's what you're really
the
naming.
Nations come to your light.
Right. Yep. Which is, it is an astounding hope. Mm-hmm. And really a great reminder of why we're reading all of the Bible. Really, this goes all the way back to Abraham, right? I talked about this in my sermon on Sunday. That there's this promise to Abraham: I am going to bless all nations through you.
Exactly.
So it's a new thing, but it's an old thing.
And you even
or a
have
reminder,
right?
Yeah.
Right. You even have some inklings of, that covenant with Noah of all the earth, including all living things.
Absolutely.
So for me, that's a super important thing to make sure we understand it's in there.
Yes. Absolutely.
Pregu. It's in there.
What a
You're
reference.
making all these references.
Sorry,
No idea what you're talking about.
That's me just adding a little lightness to things.
So
What about Isaiah's call?
yeah, I was just going to go there.
Isaiah's
Beautiful.
call is a familiar one. Tell us a little bit about that, Elliot. I know you want to talk about that.
Yeah, I think just, again, reminding ourselves that we're in this new literature of the prophetic books. We have this role, this office of prophet. And one of the things that is unique to some degree, though we see this throughout Scripture, but one of the things that is foundational to the role of prophet is the calling of the prophet, that there is this revelation, this encounter with God where God says, you are going to be my messenger. As Tanya pointed out, not to just tell the future, that's really not the main role, but to be a proponent for justice in the land currently and to name the evils that are being perpetrated among the rulers and among the people. And I think out of all of the call narratives, I would have to say Isaiah's may be the most famous of the prophets. I don't know if y'all would disagree, but I just think
Well, it's evocative of Isn't it Samuel's call? Wait, no.
the Samuel one is with Eli, where there's the voice
Well,
and
right.
he keeps mistaking it.
He keeps mistaking it, and then he has to, I think he says, "Here I am,"
Okay.
or "Speak to me," or something like that. "Here I am, Lord,
Yeah.
I'm listening." Something along
Yeah,
those
there's
lines.
a lot of similar language.
Right?
Yeah.
And so what
Absolutely.
happens here is a very similar
Right.
language.
What's interesting about Isaiah's is that it takes place in the temple. And so there's a question of what is Isaiah's relationship to the temple beforehand. Some people have speculated maybe Isaiah was a priest of some sort. Some people think that he was already in a position in the royal court where when the king was in the temple, he would be able to also enter the temple. It doesn't really say, interestingly enough, but I think one of the things that's so striking about this call narrative that I love to point out to people, in fact, Peter Stube, one of our priests here, gave a talk on Isaiah in our adult forum, and we put up on the screen what we were calling biblically accurate angels. And you should just everyone that's listening should just do a quick Google search because it's quite astounding. These are not the, baby cherubs with puffy cheeks and, little flappy wings. What you see in Isaiah 6 are these things called seraphs that have 6 wings and multiple eyes, and they attend the Lord, and they're terrifying. And Isaiah sees them, and he is just like, "Woe is me! I am an unclean man of unclean lips from an unclean people." It's like as low as he can get, and as I'm sure, literally, it's like, "Please don't smote me, you crazy creatures attending to the Lord." And I think maybe one of the things that strikes people the most is there's this amazing moment where a coal is put into Isaiah's mouth to cleanse him in some strange fashion. And then, he says, "Here I am." But maybe, Tanya, you want to say part of what's so striking is the message that God gives to Isaiah. Not a message that would make you a very popular guy, right? Because God says, you're going to do this and no one's going to listen to you.
That's right.
Well, that's common among the prophets too, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah. I don't think the life of a prophet is fun.
Right. It's not an easy gig.
Yeah. I mean, the prophet comes after him. Jeremiah is
The weeping prophet.
The weeping prophet. His family tried to kill him. Everyone's trying to kill him. Everyone hates him for what he's telling them.
Yep.
And yet he has to sorrowfully keep telling them what's going to happen
Right.
if they don't change. I think Isaiah, in many ways, is in a similar place. And neither of them get killed because of Amos, because Amos is protected when Amos also challenges. And just at the moment when they're going to kill Amos, they're like, wait, we can't do this. Remember, prophets are protected.
Right.
And really that established protection. But, I think about the prophetic work that's even done now.
Yeah.
And how dangerous.
Right.
I want to get into that, but I feel like we got to hold off a little bit.
Yeah, we got some more ground to cover.
We got so much to cover.
I think it'll be important to talk about. I wanted to say really quick, Tanya, because you started talking about these other prophets, Jeremiah, Amos. Remind me, I can't remember if this is a true memory or if I'm making this up. Isn't Jeremiah the one that at some point is in a grave or in a hole? Or he's inside of something.
Are you thinking of Ezekiel in the bones? I mean, because Ezekiel has some crazy visions.
I don't remember that for Jeremiah. But
okay,
you
this
know
is what it is. This is what
We'll
it is.
get
No,
there.
this is important because
Okay.
Tanya, this leads us into something Tanya wanted to talk about, which is this idea of synax.
Oh, yes.
And this
I was
is
just going to say,
this
is it a synax?
Yeah,
What
this
is a synax?
This is a really important thing for understanding the prophets.
Very important.
And Jeremiah is what I was remembering. I had to Google this really quick. My memory is fuzzy on Jeremiah. I'm excited to reread. Jeremiah is thrown into a cistern by officials who oppose his prophecies. So again,
Right.
not popular to be a prophet and to be
Not
telling
at all.
people doom and gloom, God's going to judge you, you've been oppressing people. And there's this time that he spends in there. This is part of why he's the weeping prophet, among many other things he does. He has no water, there's just mud in there, and he sinks down into it, and eventually he's brought up out of it, which kind of leads to this idea of synax, Tanya, which maybe you want to explain to people.
So synax, there's one point where I think Isaiah walks around naked to try to get people to pay attention. Synax are desperation of trying to find other ways to get people to hear God's message. And you have all sorts of crazy things that some of the minor prophets do.
Yep.
Like one marries a woman who is considered a prostitute.
Hosea.
Yeah. And
Well, Daniel ends up in the lion's den.
Right.
You were mentioning Jeremiah being thrown into a cistern. I'm like, that sounds like Daniel.
but a lot of this is actually purposefully done.
Right.
To putting themselves in strange positions,
Yep.
wearing crazy clothes, doing crazy things to try to get attention.
Right.
So that people hear God's words.
Right. The idea is these are almost dramatic performances. So famously or infamously, probably, the one in Hosea is very well known, where Hosea marries a prostitute, and the idea is as complex as it is, and we'll get there when we talk about Hosea. Is the idea is this is what God does with the people of Israel, even though they're unfaithful, God still is wedded to them,
Right.
Despite their many betrayals. That's a very complex analogy in today's world, and the role of women, but. In Isaiah, the example is walking around naked, and these, even with Jeremiah, the idea is this is how the people of Israel treat God, or the people of Judah treat God, and that there will be this ultimate rising up out of the cistern, this moment of hope. So it's these almost performances, right? These dramatic.
They're very much dramatic performances, and who knows if some of what Jeremiah, the weeping part, is part of that.
Right.
His deep sorrow, I don't think it was put on, but I think it was also part of communicating.
So, wow. It's so easy to want to get pulled into
So many other
present day.
places.
So the idea
Yeah.
is that these sign acts are things that are done that disrupt the everyday expectations of the people.
Yeah.
Maybe disrupt business or what's going on in the world. It's a way of stopping and disrupting the regular order of things.
Yes.
To try to draw attention to the message that you have to convey.
And the message with Isaiah.
Yeah.
Social justice.
Yep.
Right. for the people.
Absolutely.
And again, I think we said this back in those episodes in the King's era, that the prophet is there to speak truth to power. So whomever that power
Exactly.
is, not just the king, usually the king or whatever the leadership authority is, but also those who surround that power structure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, there are definitely people who've done that in our lifetimes
Right.
Right.
and do it now. We had one professor at Princeton, Carvalho, from Brazil, who was doing a lot of, he would dress up in crazy things to do his lectures to try to get people to focus on, his focus was on environmental care.
Right.
And our call to care for all of
Right.
the environment. So
Right. And I think maybe the takeaway here is that the prophetic works, the prophets themselves, are very dramatic, creative, poetic resistors
Very
of
much.
what is
Very much
contemporary and what is the status quo, right? That they are coming up by way of God, these creative ways to challenge what's going on in the society.
absolutely.
I had a question for you, Tanya, which is that we have talked about how the prophets are not these kind of fortune tellers.
No.
And yet they do speak on God's behalf about both future judgment and future hope. And many Christians know, as you pointed out, famous passages from Isaiah that are then
Yep.
used in the New Testament.
So many of them. Don't stop every time you hear something familiar. You will never make it through Isaiah.
As prophecy, right? Like we understand this, or some understand this, I shouldn't say we, some understand this as fulfilled prophecy. Would you talk a little bit about some of those passages and
Sure.
what's going on there and the way the New Testament uses it and how we can kind of think through that as we read this work?
Well, and also not just how the New Testament uses it.
Yep.
Right, exactly. So it's important to be faithful to the original context. Well, and this was also something that when we were doing this with Women's Bible Study, to remember that while many of these things are going to be familiar to us and we're going to think, oh, this is Jesus right away, that wasn't the context.
Right.
That this was written by the Jewish people and that they were writing for that context. And it's important to remember that. And then, of course, in the Christian tradition, we see some of these things as having been fulfilled,
Right.
right, in a unique way. And we just need to make sure that we aren't using supersessionism, which is this idea that Israel somehow has abandoned and not followed Christ, and that
Right.
Christians are, better.
Right.
And we just need to not go there
Right.
and keep God's covenant, really,
Right.
of loving everybody and not weaponizing Scripture.
Right.
And at the same time, rejoicing in our beliefs
Right.
of the Messiah. And this is one example. This affirms faithfulness and allows us to affirm God's commandments.
Right.
But Isaiah 9:6, and I'm going to read it. For a child has been born for us, a son given to us. Authority rests upon his shoulders, and he is named Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. So for us, that means one thing,
Right.
right? Aren't you going to sing?
Wonderful Counselor, Almighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. I'm not sure I actually did that correctly. My apologies
We'll check
to
with
Elaine. Anyways,
We all have
you
to
know
have
this
her back
from
so
the
she can-
Messiah. You
You
do.
do,
If you haven't heard it
exactly.
anywhere else.
Exactly. So this
definitely
is absolutely. We are going to encounter a lot of beautiful words that
Right.
we know and love.
Right. Yeah. Go ahead, Natalie.
I was going to say, yeah, there's a part in Isaiah 11 that's also, it makes me think of Advent. You get to Advent, you get a shoot shall come out
Yep.
from the stump
Oh, yep.
of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of his roots. The Spirit of the Lord shall rest on him, the Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and might, the Spirit of knowledge and the fear of the Lord. His delight shall be in the fear of the Lord.
Right.
And then it goes on, and then it's the wolf shall live with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the kid, and the calf and the lion and the fatling together, and a little child shall lead them.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
We get that. That's in 11.
Yeah. So one thing I want to remind people, again, it's hard because we've gone through some of these books like the wisdom literature, and we had left behind for a while Samuel and Kings and Chronicles. But it's important to remember that the hope of Israel in this period, right, is for a Davidic king. And so even what you just read, Natalie, from 11, it's very important that this is the stump of Jesse, right? This is the return of the Davidic king. Even where Tanya just read in 9, if you read a few more verses down, the hope is for, in verse 7, the throne of David and his kingdom. The person will establish it and uphold it with justice and with righteousness. And remember, this is happening during a period where the kingdoms have split, and there are, if we remember from Kings and Chronicles, all of these kings that are failing to live into the mold of Davidic kingship.
Right.
And so, as Tanya very helpfully pointed out, in the context of this writing, the hope is that God will provide that Davidic king. And as we remember, I'm sure everyone remembers from First Chronicles, in First Chronicles, the Davidic king that comes and acts as the Davidic king should is Hezekiah. And so what any scholar worth their salt will tell you is that when Isaiah is talking about a child being born, a son being given to us, a wonderful counselor, who Isaiah is specifically talking about in his context is Hezekiah, because Hezekiah is this king that brings reforms, that establishes justice, that upholds righteousness. I think when we get to the New Testament, knowing what they know about what then happens with Babylon and Persia and Jerusalem, is that the New Testament Jewish writers have this sense that this didn't play out the way we had hoped, right? Judah still went into exile in Babylon. They came back, and we still have not yet received this Davidic king. So it makes sense, right, that the New Testament authors can turn to this and understand that we need something even greater than Hezekiah or Josiah. So they're using it a little bit outside of its context, but I think they're trying to use it in a way that is still faithful to the hope that was originally expressed. And so I think you make such a great point, Tanya, is we can't just ignore that original context. We can't just go, oh, Isaiah meant Jesus, right? Yeah. Because that wouldn't be faithful to what was happening here.
Correct.
Not to ramble on about that, one of my favorite fun facts is I shared this in our podcast on Matthew, is another very famous verse that people may be aware of is Isaiah 7, verse 14. And this is quoted in Matthew chapter 1. And the verse in Isaiah is, I'll read it as my Bible translates it. Therefore, the Lord himself will give you a sign. Look, the young woman is with child and shall bear a son and shall name him Emmanuel. Again, in Isaiah's context, this is the hope for Hezekiah or another king that will reform Judah in that contemporary context. What's very interesting is that I'm sure all our listeners will remember. We have a lot of, scholarly listeners. I know they remember everything we say.
And if you don't, I'm going to use our Spotify account to point you back to the episodes that we're talking about here.
But what they'll remember, because we've mentioned this, is that the Old Testament, written in Hebrew, was translated into Greek before the New Testament was written. This is how we get this work called the Septuagint. We'll remember this was written around the time of Alexander. And when those Jews that got together translated the Hebrew scriptures, they translated the Hebrew word that's used here, young woman, with the Greek word parthenos, virgin.
Oh, right.
And so my point for bringing this up is when Matthew, the author of one of our Gospels, is reading Isaiah, he's reading it in the Greek because that was the lingua franca of the day. And he's reading Isaiah 7 and he reads, look, a virgin is with child. And so you'll remember Matthew, if I'm remembering correctly, is the only author that has the virgin birth, the only gospel writer. Maybe Luke. Or just
Luke
Matthew.
Luke has...
Someone's going to have to fact check me.
Sorry, I'm quick. I'm grabbing. Get Luke. Well, Luke's got all of the Mary stuff, like all of her.
So maybe it's Luke and Matthew.
But I don't know that she was referred to as a virgin.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. I can't remember if she's referred to as a virgin in Luke. Regardless, I know it is the case in Matthew, and Matthew quotes this verse explicitly. And what's just fascinating to think about is that Matthew is using Isaiah and setting up this story with this verse, where there, we know, is a mistranslation of the word.
Yep.
And I just think that's a really fun fact. Do with that what you will.
Well, it's interesting.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting. I think it teaches us a little bit about the way the New Testament writers are using the Hebrew scriptures, and they are seeing in them this mold of Jesus.
Matthew and Luke both refer back and use the word virgin.
Okay.
At least in my NRSV translation. And as you'll recall, Mark skips over. There's no birth narrative. It skips straight to Jesus' adulthood. And John starts in the beginning, like Genesis.
Yep.
So you've got, but Matthew and Luke, who have birth stories, do use the word virgin in there. But again, like you said, that would have come from the Septuagint, the mistranslation, the whole.
Yeah. But it's interesting. I think what it teaches us is that with Jesus's ministry and life and actions, the New Testament writers are trying to make sense of this with the stories and narratives of the Hebrew people. This doesn't happen and they go, oh, look, here's this completely new thing that's happening. Well, let's just make sense of it. No, they say, here's this thing that's happening. How do we understand this? Go backwards and look at these scriptures we have, and how do we understand it in light of that? So I think that's just an interesting
but to your point, they're doing that. In some ways, I feel like it mimics a lot of what they were doing in the Jewish people were doing in the Babylonian Empire.
Right.
Yes.
As, when they were torn from their people, their land, and going through such destruction, the Christians are under that same amount of trauma. Mm-hmm. And they're building the church.
Right.
And we have the letters of Paul, we have those things at the beginning, but then they start writing the Gospels.
Right.
And it's a powerful thing, right?
Quick question. This makes me think, and we are way off topic because we're supposed to be in Isaiah and we are currently in the New Testament.
Well, Isaiah's used,
pulled in,
right,
and becomes such an important base because of exactly what we're just reading.
Yep.
Right. And it's really important. And we understand things differently when we look backwards.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep.
Just random quick thing. Everything we've read so far was written later, not at the time that it was happening. Is there anything in our Bible that was written at the moment? Just the letters in the New Testament? Or are there things that were written down as they were happening?
Mm-hmm. I think this is complicated in the sense of the ancient world, by and large, especially when we're talking about the Hebrew scriptures more than the New Testament, is an oral culture, right? So Isaiah, by and large, is giving these prophecies verbally, orally, right? This is an oral thing, prophecy, the prophetic office. That being said, especially at this period in the 6th century, 7th century, 6th century, 5th century BCE, as there is becoming more of a scribal class, things are being recorded, things are being written down, right? And so I think by and large, many of these inheritances we have are things where a lot of their beginnings are spoken, they're oral, then they're being written down. So as Tanya said, a lot of these things are being written after the fact, after they would have been spoken, after these communities. And that's very true of the Gospels as well, right? Like maybe there's some sense in which stories are being transmitted, some things are being written down, but it takes a Matthew, a Mark, a Luke, a John to after the fact write these things. So.
Yeah. And then miraculously, with all the translations and all the rewritings and we still have, a core of what we're reading now in our own language.
Right.
And it's available in so many languages.
Right.
It's just mind-blowing.
Right. It is. That's a great question, Natalie, and definitely welcome any comments from listeners or thoughts. That's a huge historical question, but maybe to transition us to lighter topics, give Tanya a chance here at some speed round questions for people to get to know her a little bit better personally and get some hot takes on biblical scholarship from her. But we'll start with, so the idea, Tanya, is whenever we have a guest, we do these speed round questions. And the idea is you can't really go into depth explaining them. You just answer in a few seconds. Maybe if you want to say like one sentence explaining your answer, you can. So I'm gonna shoot them off at you. Are you ready?
As ready as I'll ever be.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Early bird or night owl?
Early bird.
Favorite book other than the Bible?
Oh my goodness.
The Tale of Despereaux.
Maybe. I was an English major undergrad. That is a cruel question.
I know.
But one book that was very impactful for me was Things Fall Apart by Achebe.
Okay. Encourage listeners to go look that one up.
African book.
Yeah.
Novel book. Important story.
People should go look it up.
They
Check
should.
it out. It's a powerful book.
Yeah, I've heard of that one. I haven't read it.
So one word someone close to you might use to describe you. Putting you on the spot.
Let's see. Well, warm.
I think I'd have to agree.
Most people.
I'd use that one. Most used app on your phone.
Most used app on my phone. Currently DoorDash, perhaps.
That is true. I feel like we've all begun to use that one more.
Wait, I'm inserting one.
Okay.
Yes.
Where do you know Elliot from?
Oh, Elliot and I went to Princeton Theological Seminary together.
That's right.
And we had an amazing experience.
It's proof God's at work.
Absolutely.
Yep. I remember when Tanya came to first tour St. David's as you were looking at the position. I was like, oh my gosh, it's Tanya. But really, even before that, we just happened to bump into each other at St. John's.
Yeah.
And what's funny is while Tanya and I were both at Princeton, I had no idea she was in the ordination process in this diocese, which is just
until you saw me at St. John's.
Until
where I was
yep.
a seminarian.
That's right.
Working, and then
I'm sorry, St. John's in
Norristown.
In Norristown.
Yes,
Yep.
the diocesan
Thank you for
center.
clarifying.
Yep.
Yep.
And you and I met in our liberation theology class.
That's right.
With
yeah.
Dr. Barreto.
Yes, which was an amazing course, learning about theology in South and Latin America.
Yeah.
Yeah. So go to comfort food. Speaking of DoorDash and food.
Really good dark chocolate.
Yeah, you are a good go-to person for chocolate. So
yeah, I'll always have something.
All right. So to give you some hot take Bible questions, favorite book of the Bible?
Genesis.
Ooh. One book of the Bible you would cut out.
I don't think I'd cut it out, but I think we should have a book like the 12 prophets for Revelations, because Revelations is part of a whole tradition that I think we need to understand more.
Okay.
Cultural implications, because there's a lot of misreading of Revelation.
I'm taking that as cutting it out. Nice try to get around it. Cutting out Revelation. All right. Favorite gospel?
Favorite gospel? Matthew.
Nice.
Because I just really appreciate the depth of his Jewish scholarship and connection with Torah.
Nice. Most underrated Bible character?
Most underrated? Zacchaeus?
Ooh. Zacchaeus is a good one.
He's also the most undersized.
That's true. Undersized and underrated.
Maybe that's why as a kid I really liked him. But yeah, I was like, oh, he had to climb up a tree.
Let's see. I have a few here, but I don't want to hit you with too many. So we'll end with this one. A passage or book or chapter or story you wrestle with from the Bible.
Ooh. Oh my God.
I'm sure there's many, but if you had to choose one.
I wrestle with Judges. It's really, oh my gosh.
Yeah, that was a tricky one.
That's a hard one.
That one was, we wrestled with that
I think
too.
you in particular, Natalie, really didn't like Judges.
I had such a hard time with
Brutal.
Judges.
Yeah.
By the end, I was like, all right, I won't get rid of it.
Yep.
But it's really hard.
Yeah, that's a tricky book. Well, thank you for answering some of those speed round questions, giving people a chance to get to know you a little better. I couldn't encourage people more that if they're around St. David's to come stop in your office to put you out there and offer that up.
Absolutely.
Tanya is a wonderful, amazing human being to talk to.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thanks, Elliot.
And we hope we'll have you back next week as we continue to read Isaiah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I think we need a round 2.
I think we need round 2 on Isaiah here.
Okay.
All right.
Well, I'll gird my loins.
Full circle.
Love it.
A true Rick line.
You can tell she listens in. She doesn't just work here. She's also a listener.
That's true. Tanya is actually an avid listener. She's
am.
always commenting on the episodes and talking about when she listens to them.
Yep.
And things
true.
we missed.
That's right.
Well,
Make sure you bring your perspective.
highly recommend listening.
All right. Well, thank you all for being here. We will have more Isaiah for you next week. Thanks for joining. Bye. Thank you for listening to this episode of Cross Connections Cover to Cover. New episodes drop each Wednesday. Please be sure to follow or like us on your favorite podcasting app to find us easily each week, or join us on our email list at stdavidschurch.org/crossconnections. If you have questions for us, you can call us at 484-588-5656 and leave a voicemail with your name, where you're from, and your question or comment. Please note, we may use your recorded voice in an upcoming episode of Cross Connections. If you like what you hear, we'd love if you would share this with your friends and rate us in Spotify and Apple Podcasts or whatever other app you're using so people can find us as well. Don't forget to visit our show notes for the year's reading list and any other resource links we've mentioned. Cross Connections is a ministry of St. David's Episcopal Church in Wayne, Pennsylvania. Season 2 Cover to Cover is hosted by
Rick Morley, Elliot Van Hoy,
and Natalie Hill. Logo graphic design and podcast production by Natalie Hill. Stock media music provided by Marscott and Mood Mode Pond 5. You're welcome to learn more about all of St. David's worship and ministries at stdavidschurch.org. Prego. It's in there.
And then just if you even want, so you don't have to lean forward, Tanya, if you want to bring it closer, the one thing about this that we always tell guests is you have to talk directly into it. Like if you're to the side of it over here in any way, it can just twist towards you if you want. Yep.
This thing is.
Oh, okay.
It's not fragile. You can really.
Yeah. I think I'd rather lean forward.
Yeah.
So that I can also look at my papers while
Right.
I'm also looking into.
And if it helps if you want to move it around at all, we can.
Okay.
Yeah, I like to kind of have it where I can have the book still right here.
I feel like my microphone's going to fall right off the thing. I've got it. It looks so loose.
Oh, yeah. I had to adjust that the other day.
It just seems like it's in a weird spot. Okay. I can't even. All right. I feel like this is a weird.
I think everyone sounds good.
I think that's.
You want to?
Do I sound okay?
Yep.
Yep. Yeah,
Awesome.
I think we're pretty good.
Good.
All right. So here we are. I've got, oh my gosh, so many chords in front of me.
A lot of chords.
Feels like more than usual for some reason.
All right, Tanya. So I think you are the third black knob at the very top.
This one?
I think so.
That's you.
Do
Yep.
you want to turn it up just a tad?
Turn it up.
Yeah.
Is that this way?
Towards, I guess, the bigger numbers.
Are there bigger numbers? I'm not actually sure how it's set up.
Yep.
I think there are.
How's that?
Ooh,
That's-
lots louder. How
Too
am I?
loud?
Maybe a bit.
How am I?
How's that?
That's clear.
Good.
Good?
Yeah.
Too loud? Too quiet?
Turn it down a tiny bit.
Especially if
How's
we
that?
laugh, it's going to be loud. You can see we're probably blowing out the little gauge things.
I have it on 7.5.
What is everyone else on?
There's one person's on 6. Everyone else is kind of like 6.
Okay, you want to put yours on 7?
Elliot and Ed.
Only be-
Tanya. Yep, that's right.
Only because right when...
Is this okay? Is that too loud?
I don't know.
I think she's going to be fine
Yeah.
because I'm going to be able to adjust.
Okay.
I put it on 7.
Okay.
So you guys are like 6.5.
Okay.
Okay. So not much of a
You and
difference.
Elliot are nice and loud in here, but I'm not hearing myself super well. I'm just hearing my own echo.
Oh,
But do I
odd.
sound okay to you all?
Yeah, you sound great.
Okay. I don't know what's going on with my
Headphones.
headphones because I feel like my feed isn't into it's weird.
How strange.
Anyways. Okay. So this is episode 40 of the podcast.
Wow.
And
I think I forgot my phone.
That's amazing.
oh no.
It is.
Yeah.
I have my speed round questions for Tanya.
Okay,
Oh.
great. All right. So what we have generally done when we have a guest is that we just introduce you as the Reverend Tanya Regli, our newest associate rector here at St. David's. And so welcome, Tanya. Thank you for joining us. Tell us a little bit about yourself. And then you can just say just a little something about who you are, whatever, when you started here. What in the world would you have done with your phone?
Yeah. How
Checked your pockets and everything? Did it get put underneath a piece of paper in here? Or? No. And then Elliot might have some speed run questions for you because he likes to do that to people.
Yes, I heard those.
All right. So we'll start off. So usually
I'm caught up on all my podcasts. So.
yeah. So you've heard me. I welcome everybody. I'll probably say something about it being our 40th. I'll mention that Rick's not here this week. So it's Elliot, myself, and our special guest, the Reverend Tanya Regli, who's here to talk with us this week. And then we can do a little introduction to you. And then I'll transition us into, hey, we've made it through all the wisdom literature of the Bible, and we're now into the section of the Hebrew scriptures that we refer to as the prophets. And we get started with Isaiah. So let's hear a little bit about the prophets generally. What are prophets? So we'll kind of do kind of like a broad overview of this section, and then we'll look at Isaiah specifically.
Do you want me to contribute to the broad part too?
Yeah,
or just
I mean,
wait until
you've heard us. We kind of bounce
you do bounce.
a lot.
I'll try to follow your lead.
And sometimes we'll just be like, and now for you to say something.
And I'll be like,
Who hasn't spoken much yet? I might do something, be like, oh yeah, and so yesterday Tanya was helping me prep by giving me her notes from seminary.
Which I shared with the entire women's Bible study.
That's great. Well, and that too, you've done this with the women's Bible study already, so we can mention that as well. And was that right before you took this summer break that's on?
That's all we did was Isaiah from the time I started to the 6 months of Isaiah.
Oh, wow.
Well, maybe
Isaiah
not 6,
scholar
4
now.
months. Just the first section.
You didn't even get through all of Isaiah in 6 months?
Not 6 months. I started late, so.
Right. Well, it's one meeting a week, so.
One meeting a week for
Even
an
still,
hour.
if you're only doing
but
a few
for 4 months.
chapters, how
For
much?
4
What's
months.
the reading homework?
There was no reading
You read
homework.
when
we
you're
were
there.
just reading together.
Yeah.
And that was the difference.
So
I
think
won't
about
be
it:
doing that next
24
year,
meetings.
But that's what was happening.
24 meetings, 40 chapters.
I suddenly inherited a women's Bible study, and
Yeah.
I had no prep. So
Right.
we just kind of did it. I wouldn't do that again, but yeah.
So you'll do it differently when it comes back in the fall.
Oh, yeah.
I think that sounds
And we
like
won't
a
be
good
finishing
idea.
Isaiah. We'll be moving on.
We're gonna have maybe like 2.5 episodes on Isaiah. Like we're
Yeah,
not.
Isaiah's
we're not
a lot.
Gonna have, we're not gonna do a month and a
Yeah.
half.
No.
But I guess we'll just direct everybody to the women of the women's Bible study if people want a more depth.
If anybody wants to know about the first section of of Isaiah,
The women are
any
well
women
versed.
in the Bible study that have been coming will know the answer.
Another shout out to Allie. Allie, tell me what you think about Isaiah.
Yeah.
All right. I know that we only have so much time because you all have meetings at
2:30.
2:30. So
Yeah, we got to get
we
rolling.
gotta get rolling here.
So, introduction to Tanya. So you'll ask her to introduce herself, say a little bit about herself.
Yep.
You want to introduce the prophets as like a category?
No, not necessarily. I can.
You should.
but Okay.
Yeah.
I think she's ready to do that.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I'll just mention that that's a thing,
Yeah.
and then the two of you who know what you're talking about can talk.
Okay.
We can
I mean,
both just talk, yeah.
I did make some notes from like my other sources, but
Okay.
that doesn't mean that.
Yeah, just reminding people this is what prophets are. This is what prophetic
prophets are.
literature
Exactly.
is. So we can both do that.
I feel like you said it really, described it really. I meant to go back to the episode where you described it so
In, like,
well.
Samuel.
In like Samuel. It was
Yeah.
probably our Samuel episode. I should find.
So I think you should do
wonder
that.
what it
I'm
was.
happy to pitch in. But
Yeah. I mean, it's conversational. And then do you want to introduce Isaiah specifically? Like kind of a lot of times what we'll do is like, this is the book. This is why it has this name. This is kind of when we think it was written. This is the context. Just kind of giving people background.
I don't know the meaning of Isaiah's name, but
Oh, I don't either. It's just, I think it literally means like God saves.
Oh, I feel like that was
You can-
in.
The vision of Isaiah. It's somewhere. I think it's literally in the, I think I have it
probably
right here.
in the intro. It's usually somewhere.
The Hebrew. Yeshayahu, the Lord saves. But you don't even have to say things like that, right? Like you can just say the
Yeah,
book gets its
there's
name
plenty to
because
say.
the prophet of the book is Isaiah.
Although technically he didn't write all of it.
Which that could be part of the
Or he
intro.
didn't
Is like,
say all of it.
Yeah.
It was written down later during the
Right.
Babylonian exile.
right. So we'll talk about we'll introduce the book kind of as a whole, give some big picture stuff, and then we'll just go from there and talk about things we think are interesting in these first 35 chapters. It's very just, not planned. Whatever you have to bring, versus issues, challenges, things to consider. Is there anything specific you were like, I definitely want to talk about this in these first kind of 35 chapters?
Well,
Probably the
put down
importance of
stuff.
justice.
Right. So that I wanted to talk about the fact that mishpat, which means justice, and in Hebrew, and tzedakah, which means righteousness, which is another very important word in Hebrew, are both come up a lot. And that one of the things we've done is put them together to, in our translation, to mean social justice. So that's a really important theme in Isaiah, and also impact on us in terms of our understanding of what they're trying to communicate.
Yeah, I think that'll be awesome.
Okay,
Great.
There's also sign acts are introduced. I don't know if you guys want to talk about sign acts.
I don't know what that means, so I will be the person who doesn't know what that means, and you can explain it as we record.
That'll be fun.
That'll
you
be
can
fun.
pitch it on sign acts.
Yeah,
'cause
for sure.
They are a lot.
Yes.
And I think it's worth also making sure we note that, like, one of the things about the importance of Isaiah is its influence on the New Testament writers. But as you were saying, but that it wasn't written for those writers, right? Like, it was written for an audience of the time, and they had a certain understanding of it that we have since then applied to Jesus, but it's not.
Yeah, I want to
make sure.
We should definitely talk about Isaiah's call in chapter 6, a very famous passage. Who will go? Send me, Lord.
Yep.
I mean,
Here I
one of the
Well, why don't you
yeah.
pitch in on that one?
But definitely, let's talk about its importance in the New Testament. It's probably one of the most quoted books from the entire Old Testament.
Yeah, I was going to talk about that.
Yeah, messianic type stuff.
As you read it, you'll keep hearing things, and you'll be like, "I've heard that in the New Testament. I've heard that
gonna read
in something we sang."
I don't know if I can do this, but I was going to read one of them, like Isaiah 9:6.
Yeah.
Wonderful
that's a good one.
Counselor, mighty God. Yeah.
For a child has been born for us, a son given to us. Authority rests upon his shoulders, and he is named Wonderful Counselor,
Wonderful
Mighty God,
Counselor.
Everlasting Faith.
Oh no, more
Prince
Natalie
of
singing.
Peace.
Everlasting
His
Father.
authority shall grow continually, and there shall be endless peace for the throne of David and his kingdom. He will establish and uphold it with justice and with righteousness
Yeah.
from this time forward.
Sorry, I'm
forevermore.
just singing
I
from
love
the
it.
Messiah.
Please
I love
do.
it.
But it's just like we directly associate this with
Yep.
Isaiah, with Jesus, but we need to be careful.
Yeah. Right.
Yes. That's
Because that was
supersessionism, right?
Supersessionism is
Right.
the danger zone there.
Right.
Yep.
Danger.
Highway to the danger zone.
Nunca en mi vida, jamás. I have no
Now
idea
that's
what you're
one I can
referring
get
to.
behind. That's a Top Gun reference, which I'm not surprised Tanya has almost certainly not seen.
Never heard or seen.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a movie. Well, it's a
Well, but
song,
that's a
from,
song
a
from a
movie.
movie,
Yeah,
yeah.
that predates the movie, I'm sure. Yeah, I think that's all great stuff to talk about. We're going to have our hands full in getting all of this within an hour. Really, I think we're going to have a lot to talk about.
And that's only like
think
the first half.
Literally. We've only talked about a few chapters. I mean, a lot of it's judgment against the nations, judgment against reminding people about the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom, that this is happening during the Syrian Empire, and the northern kingdom is being destroyed. And
Yeah.
So this would be from like the Kings, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, from Kings. Yep.
And I don't remember which verse this. Arise, shine out, for your light has come. The glory of Yahweh is shining on you. One of the things I love about Isaiah, and asked the people in the Bible study to note when they saw it, is that while God is condemning things that nations have done, God is also calling nations.
Yep.
This
Absolutely.
is beyond Israel.
Yep.
This is to all the world.
Yep. Yep.
So God is obviously not just working in Israel.
Yep. I
God
think that's
is
great.
working everywhere.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, that there's a hope for all nations.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Yes.
just trying to find it because this is
What are
after
you looking
Elijah
for?
and Elisha, but they were prophets to the northern kingdom, anyways.
So I believe in Kings, Uzziah is known as Azariah.
Oh, jeez.
I know this is where it starts getting super annoying. Let me double check
What are you
that.
looking for?
Azahiah of Judah? In like
She's looking
Kings-
up,
I'm just trying to find the reference for people if they want to go back to
Right.
where this would have been in the Kings or in the Chronicles. Where will they find?
So
Where will they find Isaiah?
Azariah. Sorry, that was right. And you can find him in, for example, we'll go to Chronicles. I'll try and find where he is in Kings if it mentions him. Okay. 2 Kings 15.
Here we go. 2 Kings 15. Yep.
Yep.
In the 27th year of King Jeroboam of Israel, King Azariah,
And he was not a
son
great
of
king.
Amaziah of Judah, began to reign.
Yes. And then,
somewhere later it mentions King Uzziah.
yep.
But that's when we have like they kept changing their names.
Yeah.
Okay. So 2 Kings 15 is where you'll start.
Yep. And then his son is Jotham, who's also mentioned in that first verse of Isaiah, is Azariah / Uzziah's son. And then this is all nerdy.
Because I remember being like, oh, they mentioned Isaiah somewhere in here.
Yep.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that we had that at least to reference that you can find if you want to go back to 2 Kings. It's probably also in 2 Chronicles then.
Yeah, so then Ahaz is Jotham's son, and then I think Hezekiah is... Okay, Hezekiah is Ahaz's son.
Because we're still in May. Okay. Jehoshaphat?
Too many names. I need that
many
list
names,
of
yeah.
kings again that I
There's
had.
a lot of
Yeah,
names.
you have the great
gotten
list
worked
of
up.
names. Hold on, if we find.
I mean, just the list of kings that happen that Isaiah is written
Yeah.
during.
It's exhausting. And then multiple empires, Assyria, Babylon, Persia.
There it is.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So, yep. Azariah, parentheses, Uzziah. He was struck with leprosy. Not a great guy. Jotham. He was considered a pretty good guy. Then you had Ahaz, who was really not that great.
Yep.
And then Hezekiah, who is obviously viewed as one of the best kings of Judah.
Wasn't he was the one that we said was like, is he actually greater than?
Yeah. So, yeah, Kings views Josiah as the greatest, and then Chronicles kind of views Hezekiah, if I'm remembering that rightly,
I think
as
so.
the best.
Yeah. There's
And
another.
then,
Okay.
yeah, this is helpful.
Okay.
So then the king of Israel at the time.
You're gonna break my brain. And
I
you
know.
haven't even started.
I know. Okay, we got to start.
This is a lot. We gotta
I think
start.
the king at the time is Pekah, but I can't remember. It gets too many kings.
There's way too many.
Way
kings.
too many kings.
Lots of people to whom to preach the truth. Truth to power.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Why don't we get started?
You guys ready? All right.
Yep.